Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you on Tuesday, September 26th. Today we have a quick video about something I mentioned before, but an ongoing development where it appears as if the Chinese are essentially setting up a mechanism that synthetically would have the oil that they consume and purchase paid for with gold instead of dollars. Certainly, if this goes through, again, it's early and the details are perhaps not solidified, but should something like this take place, on one hand, not surprising given that the Chinese, really for the last decade or so, have given every indication possible. I mean, they're buying up gold mines, they're importing gold, not really sharing how much they import, but every piece of data that I've seen shows really a rush to get into gold, buying less dollars, diversifying away from the dollar. And this is an interesting development where China, who's one of the largest consumers of oil, again, the details are still early, but there was an article by Hugo Salinas Price, a Mexican businessman and investor. And it was interesting what he mentioned, where, now again, it's not a direct show up with a plate of gold in China and here's your oil. But basically, what he's saying is that they're setting up a mechanism so that producer sends their oil to China, China sends them yuan, their local currency, and then the yuan either converted directly to gold or to dollars, which can then be converted to gold, with the end result being that, at least as being described, here you have I believe China's probably the largest importer of oil. I mean, they build everything at this point. So, and I think he mentioned it was about 8 million barrels per day. So again, if you have something like this where instead of, now again, this is all synthetic because you can trade dollars for yuan back and forth, get in and out of gold. But if the net result indeed is that in the end, China's receiving the oil, and if things are as described by Mr. Price and the payments are swapped out, so that whether it's Iran or Russia, nations that have also given every indication that they're not big fans of the dollar and would rather end up with gold as opposed to the dollar, which is the way it's been for so long with the petrodollar, well, that would just be another massive source of pressure on the gold market. Again, from everything that I read, follow, see, and hear, it seems, how should we put it, that certainly what we see in the paper price of gold is a lot different from what's happening beneath the surface. Again, much like silver, it's a lot of paper gold that I don't believe could actually be delivered. And you hear these stories of gold coming from all sorts of mysterious places every time there's a big move in the market, whether it's Venezuela, that I think Citigroup tried to do some scam, or maybe it was Citigroup or Goldman did some scam to get their gold. Although apparently Venezuela reportedly is no longer taking dollars for their oil either. So you just see the trend of, now whether the average American is still seeing the dollar in the same light or not, I think for the most part, most Americans are. Again, we're sitting here ingrained in a typical way of life where you use the dollar and you're used to it being there. So I don't think on a day-to-day basis, just walking around in the U.S., you feel some of these things. But what's interesting is that if you go outside of the U.S., the number of countries that continue to indicate that we're moving away from the dollar, we prefer gold, we prefer something that can't be printed. It's not rocket science seeing the deficits. It's not rocket science seeing the debt. It's not rocket science to see every time a debt ceiling limit comes by, does the U.S. do anything of a fiscally responsible nature? No, they just say, well, we have to raise it, come back in 3 months. Unfortunately, that's been going on for a couple of decades, and at least according to anything I've ever seen, if there's mathematically any sort of way that the U.S. can ever actually repay and unprint what it's borrowed and printed, I bet, please, please, please leave a comment and let me know. Ultimately, I don't think that's possible. That's the nature of a Ponzi scheme. There is no simple exit, although you can stay out of the way of it by understanding what's happening. You can position yourself so that rather than getting an outcome similar to what many experienced when the housing bubble collapsed, if you understand how these things are going, you can position yourself so that you benefit. And again, that's not, I always want to be careful because it's not a matter of benefiting at someone else's expense. I mean, I think silver and gold, when all of these things are resolved, are going to be looked at as some of the greatest investment profiles in history. And my goal isn't to say I'm going to buy silver and gold so that someone else will lose. Obviously, I'm sitting here making videos explaining what I've seen in my career on Wall Street, what I've researched since then. So I know there's that, maybe it comes from the political demagoguing sometimes, where the idea that if you do well has to be at someone else's expense. I don't think that's the case at all. Rather, if you look at where the bigger money flows are going, see the trends that are happening, look at what has happened with past bubbles, what led to those bubbles, how things get resolved, and also what are the bigger money flows doing? Well, remember, regardless of your thoughts on China, they're the one that's funding a lot of the American spending. They're the one that's building a lot of products. So really, to keep an eye on what they're doing, in my opinion, carries a lot of significance. And we'll keep you updated about this story as more details come in. I've been hearing reports of this over the past couple weeks. Again, I wish I could provide a little more specific today, although it seems like it's still developing to some degree. So we'll keep you posted. Another great reason, I might add, to hit the subscribe button. Come back for future videos. Certainly interesting times in the markets. I think a lot of the pricing you see in the various asset classes doesn't always represent what's going on beneath the surface, and in my opinion, will have to be resolved at some point. But that's why we're making these videos. So hit that subscribe button. We will see you again tomorrow. And with that said, have a great day. Thanks.